we are here, talking about the Vancouver Canucks' plans heading into the 2025 NHL Entry Draft, as well as what they plan to do in regards to trades. What they plan to do, or what they might not plan to do. Either works here in this context, because as I had said in the previous video here on the YouTube channel, I recorded a bunch of audio for Saturday and Sunday because I was heading out on a trip. You might have noticed that in the quantity and in the types of videos that we were making over the past 2 days. So now I'm back in my room, I'm back in my computer chair, rotting away, reading NHL news and updates, and I wanted to dive into what Rick Dhaliwal said on Halford and Brough earlier last week on the 23rd. This was the normal Rick Dhaliwal segment that usually happens every Friday on Halford and Brough, and I wanted to head over onto Canucks news summaries because they went out there and summarized what it was that Dhali said on the program. There are a number of Canucks updates in this hit, so big shout out over to Canucks News Summaries once again for providing the scoop in a screenshotable, follow-alongable format for us to talk about here on the YouTube channel. So, let's start things off by talking about the Vancouver Canucks' plans at the 2025 NHL Draft. Dhaliwal says on the program that the Canucks' first-round pick, the 15th overall pick, is indeed in play if they can acquire a top 6 forward. He can see 6 centers taken in the first 11 picks in the upcoming draft. But the dream scenario is that Lightning McQueen's second cousin Roger ends up falling to number 15 because the Vancouver Canucks have checked medicals on him. There also is mention of Braden Coots, who has caught the attention of Vancouver Canucks scouts. Now, honestly, I have been very open and honest about this throughout the course of the year, but this has not been my year for talking about prospects. We haven't been making too many videos about prospects this year because I haven't been paying too much attention to them. I get it, it is totally my bad. I have definitely been in more of the prospect loop in prior years compared to this season, so I apologize for anybody who is disappointed in me for that. But if you are in the know, Roger McQueen has been a guy, skilled guy. A lot of people have been concerned about his health. Braden Coots as well, I honestly need to figure out more about him heading into next month's entry draft. But aside from the draft pick being in play, these are kind of the new tidbits of info that we are receiving, that the Vancouver Canucks could be eyeing these particular guys in that spot should a trade for a center not be available. Let's continue and start talking about some of the other players that the Vancouver Canucks have. Dhaliwal says that for Brock, it's very likely that he'll become a UFA. For Derek Forbort, Dhali is not going to be surprised if he becomes a UFA either. The Canucks have shown interest in re-signing Forbort, but Dhali is hearing that he'll most likely hit the market. The Canucks will miss Forbort's size and penalty-killing ability. For Pius Suter, the Canucks will probably take another shot at re-signing him, according to what Dhali is saying on the radio. And for Noah Juulsen, it is too early to tell what the Canucks do with him. I gotta say, I don't really think it's too big of a deal breaker if Noah Juulsen ends up sticking around or peacing out from the Vancouver Canucks lineup. I don't really consider that to be the biggest loss out there. But, of course, you know, Noah Juulsen has his fans, I guess. He's a physical guy who can body check people, and maybe he does that to the worst capacity possible because he always puts his team in a bad spot, but still, there is some value that he brings as a right-handed D-man. Meanwhile, let's go over to what Dhali talks about in regards to these other dudes. Yeah, Brock Boeser becoming a free agent, that is not surprising in the slightest. I don't think anybody is looking at Brock and thinking that he is still in a spot to become a Vancouver Canuck next season. There's a lot to look forward to in his future, and it does not look like Vancouver is going to be the place. Forbort, yeah, I mean, when you think about the Canucks and their decor, if you have 6 guys already that you can pencil in, and Hughes, Hronek, Myers, Marcus Petey, D. Petey, and Mancini, plus Tom Willander as a potential extra, it kind of closes the door on the need for another guy. But again, maybe having 7 defensemen isn't the worst thing in the world. We just can't really be too sure on Mancini and Willander for next season definitively. I think a lot of people were penciling in Mancini into the lineup because he's been so good in the playoffs and the AHL, but we'll have to wait a little bit before that call gets officially made for next season, although I think it is likely at this point. Same thing could be said about Tom Willander. Now, let's talk about trade chips, because Dolly goes out there and says that there are so many teams looking for centers, and that trading Hronek will be counterproductive to keeping Quinn Hughes. Okay, so there you go, shutting down the rumor that we have seen earlier last week about Filip Hronek potentially being on the trade block in some capacity or another for the Vancouver Canucks. That is totally fine. I do not think the Canucks need to consider trading Phil Hronek in any capacity at this point of their tenure. His loss would be very detrimental to the Canucks, I think, especially in terms of Quinn Hughes' likelihood of sticking around. But there also is a conversation on other teams. Yeah, they're all looking for centers. We have discussed Montreal, Detroit. They're all interested in that ballpark. Then Dolly talks about non-Canuck UFAs and says that Vancouver is not high on the list of top UFA destinations. He would be shocked if Mitch Marner signs in a Canadian city. And he also doesn't think that Sam Bennett will want to come to Vancouver as another one of these top guys. We made a video about this earlier in the morning if you want to check it out. Montreal's on the up and up. Vancouver is not. It is not going to be great for Vancouver trying to outbid other teams in the potential trade or free agency market here. But then if you go over to the next slide, there are some guys that are talked about that could be in there. Marco Rossi, Dolly says they shouldn't go after Rossi because he's 5'9", and the Canucks also have not contacted the Wild about him, although there were some other reports from Minnesota radio that said the Canucks might be interested, so I think we might make another video about that, depending on what the Tides have in store. And then finally, Dolly goes out there and talks about coaches, assistant coaches, Manny Malhotra. I don't really think that's too relevant to this conversation about the Canucks and their trade plans and free agency plans, but yeah, it's all going to be there on the Canucks News Summaries post if you want to dive into that. This is the unfortunate reality of being a Vancouver Canucks fan in the year 2025, isn't it? The team is just not stringing together many dubs at this point in time, and it's unfortunate because there were so many amazing things to look forward to from this Vancouver Canucks team based off of what we had seen last year. But ultimately now, it looks like a lot of that mojo, that good fate, has gone out the window when you think about the downward direction this team has taken. And that is not to disrespect anybody that is still on the organization. It's just the unfortunate likelihood that other free agents are going to be looking at this team, looking at how big of a dumpster fire it was, and using that as motivation to stay away. It seems all the more likely now that Vancouver is more of a secondary or tertiary option for these free agents in the free agent pool of 2025. And that was not the case last year. There were a bunch of guys that signed in Vancouver last year. Maybe not top-tier guys, no Gensels, Toffoli's, or Reinhardts, but Jake DeBrusk did make his way into Vancouver. Heinen, Forbort, Desharnais. These guys all decided to come to Van. It's just so many of them did not end up doing too well, and now we're looking at the team 1 year removed and saying, yeah, no, the top guy is probably going to leave in a few years. The best forward is probably not his full 100-point caliber self. The other best forward got traded because he couldn't settle any beef with the first guy, and now we're looking at Canucks hockey in a very desperate and depressed light compared to last season. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about all of these updates with the Vancouver Canucks and how you feel about the team being in this spot where, yeah, sure, they have a plan at the draft, they have a plan with their tradable assets, but it doesn't look all too concrete at this point in time. I want you to let me know in the comments all your opinions about these updates. I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.